Bilkis Bano, raped when she was pregnant, a woman who had to witness her 3-year-old daughter being killed with a stone, a woman who had to witness her mother being raped as she was wrestled to the ground, will finally get justice. The Supreme Court, in its order, a strongly worded order, has indicted the Gujarat government for its decision to release the 11 men who were convicted of both gang rape and murder. Remember, these were men who walked out to garlands and sweets. They received a hero's welcome. In fact, here at Mojo Story, we set the agenda on this story with an interview with one of the BJP MLAs who was also part of a panel that decided to release these convicts. He described them to be, quote unquote, sanskari Brahmins, the phrase that came to define the outrage against the early release of these convicts. The Supreme Court has now said that the Gujarat government is complicit and in tandem with efforts to mislead the Supreme Court as well as to suppress facts. That is the language used by the verdict today in reference to an earlier decision by the Supreme Court, which it says was based, as I said, on incomplete facts and misrepresentation. The ramifications of this verdict are many for us who have launched and focused on a sustained campaign for justice for Bilkis Bano. It is, like it is for many women across India, a moment of vindication. Let's introduce a panel today as we look at the implications of this verdict and the scathing indictment of the decision taken by the Gujarat government. Joining us on the program today, we're joined by Abha Singh, who's, of course, a senior advocate and an activist. Thank you and welcome to the program. Also joining us is Zakia Soman. Zakia has been at the forefront of women's rights, especially when it comes to the triple talaq movement. Thank you very much, Zakia, for joining us. Also joining us is PKD Nambiar, typically a supporter of the government, not necessarily a supporter of what the Gujarat government did in this case. We'll find out more in a moment. And also joining us today is Rishi Malhotra. Rishi Malhotra has been a lawyer for these 11 convicts on the losing side of the case today. We'll find out more from him on what happens now. Will his clients submit before the law in 2 weeks? They've been asked to surrender before the law within the next fortnight. Thank you very much, everybody. I'll start with you, Rishi, if I can. You have been representing these convicts today. The Supreme Court has said that the court itself was misled. Facts were misrepresented. There was a suppression of facts. Gujarat did not even have the jurisdiction to take the decision it does. Your response, Mr. Malhotra.
You see, with all due respect to the Supreme Court judgment, and we have all we respect the verdict also, but don't forget there is a big legal lacuna today in the judgment, and that lacuna is that once the Supreme Court in May 2022 has passed a categorical verdict saying that it has to be Gujarat policy and it has to be Gujarat remission which has to be applied. Today, the Supreme Court to say that the earlier judgment of the coordinate bench of the Supreme Court was wrong and was misled, I have some reservation in that for the simple reason that even if to assume that that judgment was completely baseless or not sustainable, the remedy was something else. The remedy was to file a review which got dismissed when Bilkis had filed a review against that May 22 order, and then she had a remedy to file a curative. But to set aside a coordinate bench decision of the Supreme Court, that was unwarranted, and according to me, that is a legal fallacy.
You believe, Rishi, that the Supreme Court verdict today, in setting aside the previous Supreme Court order, is a mistake and a legal lacuna. Does that mean that you will be appealing this judgment and the convicts will not be surrendering in the next 2 weeks?
You see, Barkha, there are two different dimensions and two different questions. We have our legal remedy. What I was submitting earlier was this. We have a legal remedy to challenge this Supreme Court judgment, either by way of filing a review or by way of filing a writ petition, because now this will open a Pandora box. Today, if any judgment is there in any case, a party can come up and file a writ petition in the Supreme Court saying that a judgment is bad. That is not the law of the land. The law of land is to file a review, and if review is dismissed, then to file a curative petition. That's the Supreme Court constitutional bench decision way back in Rupa Ashok Hura's judgment in 2002. So today, we can't make a comment because we have not seen the entire judgment. It's a very voluminous judgment which I saw in the
Mm.
court. I think running into 300 more pages.
Yeah,
So
nearly 300. I've tried to read as much of it as I could. Yeah.
yeah. So in any case, that's why I started with that we have all respect and we will comply with the Supreme Court decision, but we have our legal remedies and which will definitely avail of.
So you're saying both things. You're saying the court's verdict and instructions will be respected, they will be followed, but the legal process will continue. So, Rishi, before I open this up, therefore, you and your clients, the 11 convicts, are not yet accepting this as the final word on the case.
Of course not. You see, to Supreme Court to say that the judgment was based on fraud and fraud vitiates everything, I really don't understand because Gujarat government was there, Union government was there. Supreme Court did notice the earlier view of the earlier benches of Supreme Court judgment to say that one judgment is bad and therefore we are setting it aside. That's not the law of the land, and that's what Supreme Court corrected in its curative jurisdiction.
So, Rishi, let me take your points to the others. What I'm hearing from Rishi Malhotra, as he says, lacunae, can we correct the spelling of lacunae there on the banner? When you say that there's a big lacunae in the verdict, and you are going to explore your legal options, this means that maybe Bilkis Bano cannot yet hope for closure or justice. Abha, do you want to come in as a lawyer before I open this up on what Rishi has said? Abha Singh, go ahead.
As simple as that, justice not only has to be delivered, but it should appear to be delivered. So this is where you have to keep in mind that you may talk of lacunas, but can you justify these 11 convicts, these rapists who raped a 5-month-old pregnant, 5-month pregnant woman, killed her child in front of her eyes, and that too when you say you violate the rule of law. I was hearing Mr. Rishi Malhotra when 432 does not say that the judge's opinion has to be taken. It is the case where the trial is taken. It was Maharashtra which had to do it, and Gujarat usurped it. You were not ready to submit papers to the Supreme Court. In fact, Gujarat government tried to say that Supreme Court cannot call for the papers. In fact, now an inquiry should be ordered to see who were these bureaucrats, these babus who fudged the records, tried to hide the papers, who were hand in glove. We need to know the political outreach also, that who was there, who was protecting them.
So
Because
when you say there should be an inquiry, and I just want to contextualize this for our audience, the Supreme Court has today held that the court was misled. There was a suppression of facts and there was a misrepresentation of facts. You say there should be an inquiry as to how this happened, Abha. Who would you like this inquiry to be again?
see, there has to be an inquiry. In fact, I would not like a government institution to do an inquiry, but a retired High Court judge, under him, an inquiry needs to be done, because no more cases like Bilkis Bano happen. It is required because it shook the faith of all the women in this country. And I would not say women, but I would say fathers, sisters, because here you had Bilkis, a 25-year-old young pregnant woman, raped, and the way these rapists were garlanded and all. I mean, it is reprehensible. Such things should never happen in a democratic country like India. So a message needs to go to the high courts, to the governments, that there is a rule of law above you and the rule of law has to be followed. Article 21 has to be followed. Fundamental rights cannot be violated at any cost. Your ideology, your political affiliations cannot override the rule of law.
So, two very differing perspectives there. Abha Singh, who says that the court has been so scathing about being misled that there should be an inquiry. How did this happen? And Rishi Malhotra, the lawyer for the convicts, who says that the Supreme Court has delivered a verdict with a legal lacuna at the heart of it. Rishi, I'm going to let you briefly respond. Sanjay Ghosh is also here. Rishi, go ahead.
I am not commenting on the merits of the case. Please don't misunderstand me and don't misinterpret me. What I'm trying to say is there was a remedy available for Bilkis also to challenge the Supreme Court judgment. She did avail of that remedy partly. She did file a review petition against that May 22 judgment. But then she stopped. And then she filed suddenly a writ petition thriving upon the PLs filed by Suhasini Ali and others. Now today, don't forget, Supreme Court at the first part of the judgment, they have said that we are not entertaining the PLs filed by Suhasini Ali because our argument, if you remember, was that there are no locus for a public interest litigation in criminal matters. To that extent, Supreme Court did hold in our favor. My only point today is that the remedy, if any, for Bilkis was to file a curative in Supreme Court, which goes before a judges of at least 5 judges, and not a writ petition, because writ petition challenging a Supreme Court judgment is per se not maintainable in eyes of law.
Okay, let me bring in Sanjoy Ghosh, who has suddenly vanished from my screen. I wondered if he's there. Sanjoy, there you are. Sanjoy, you missed a bit of the beginning of the argument where
Yeah,
Abha said that there should be an inquiry. If the Supreme Court says it was, the earlier bench was misled, how did it happen? Who allowed it to happen? Rishi Malhotra argues that actually there's a lacunae at the heart of this. All of this should have been done as a review petition against the order of the previous bench. What do you say? What's the big takeaway from today's verdict?
Well, what Abhaji has said is correct in the sense that the Honorable Supreme Court observed, Justice Nagarathna's judgment observes, that the previous bench headed by Justice Rastogi was misled in as much as there was a reliance placed on a repealed remission policy. Be that as it may, what my learned friend, the lawyer for the released convicts, what he says is a matter of technicality. And at one stage, I feel, though I'm a lawyer and we are bound by rules of technicality, yes, it should be a review, then you have to go for a curative. But at the end of the day, the message which is being sent home by the Supreme Court today through this judgment, that the rule of law has to be followed, that justice is available for everyone, is much larger than to be trapped in these trappings of technicality. We know in many other cases, for example, I don't have hesitation to say so, in the Ayodhya case, though it was a civil dispute, all the rules, technicalities were thrown to the wind, and the land was given to a party which was not even there before the court, agitating the case. So when the Supreme Court has to do justice, it does complete justice, and it has done so today. It has in a one voice, in an emphatic voice, said that this action actually shocked the conscience of society. I'm not making a political argument, I'm making a legal argument. Because even in remission, the objective is community justice and reformation. But even in remission policies, when the crime is so heinous, certain messages have to be sent. And when we talk about technicalities and rule of law, then let's also be very clear. The Honorable Supreme Court says that it was for the state of Maharashtra to take a decision. And even today, it has been left open to the state of Maharashtra to take a final decision on the revision, if at all it should be granted or not. So therefore, when the convicts have themselves not gone by technicality, and there's a finding of complicity of the state government, I think it's rather rich now to rely on these little technicalities like Bilkis should have filed this and Bilkis should have filed that. In fact, it is a shame that we are wanting Bilkis, after having gone through this humiliating crime and then suffered this, to actually now we are expecting her that now she will do nothing else but she'll come around to the Supreme Court and litigate for further justice. So this is justice. Bilkis is a justice for entire society.
I always say that, I shudder to think of what Bilkis has lived through for the last many years. A good part of her life has been devoted to actually fighting in court. And Sanjay, you mentioned Ayodhya. I'm not going to respond to that because it's going to take a conversation in some completely other direction. We have that verdict. We have the consecration of the mandir coming now on the 22nd. We can debate it another time on another program. I want to stay focused on Bilkis Piketty Nambiar. As someone who normally supports the BJP, normally supports the government, in this case, do you think the Gujarat government got it really wrong? And instead of filing curative petitions and appealing against their own decision making, they should just say, even if they don't say it, they should accept the verdict of the Supreme Court and not keep challenging it. I can't hear Piketty.
I do support Prime Minister Modi and his government and the thought process which they function. There is no doubt. But when it comes to something related to such kind of a heinous crime, wherein we are giving a message to people, the entire country, 140 crore people, that the woman in this country is not safe. Even not only that, even if she was, there was the Supreme Court order, we are all talking about technical, but just imagine something else. Just imagine something else. I have a daughter, I have a sister, I have a mother, I have an entire ecosystem. You treat those people who comes out of whatever reason, comes out of them garlanded. Sorry, that is not my culture. That is not the culture of India. That is not the Sanatan. That is not even the belief system of India as a society. I think that was really hurting. And I believe the people who are whether I don't have any special agony to those people, or I don't know them personally or anything, and somebody comes up and say that they are all Brahmins who are good Brahmins, I am sorry. This is not
In fact, in
acceptable.
fact, in fact,
This is
PKD,
not acceptable.
I,
Forget about
I
the
just,
code.
I want to play.
Forget about
I want to play just this 25-second clip of one of the members of the remission panel. This business of being Sanskari Brahmins was said in an interview to us, and it became, in a sense, the defining template for how disgusted people were at seeing these convicts describe such. Just a 25-second clip, and I'll come to Zakia Soman after that.
क्राइम किया कि नहीं किया हमको पता नहीं है, लेकिन क्राइम के बारे में मैं क्या कोई इंटेंशन भी हो सकता है ना कि जो भूतकाल की जो कार्यवाही है उसके फैमिली के मेंबर के जो कोई एक्टिविटी है वो बहुत अच्छी थी, ब्राह्मण लोग थे और वैसे भी ब्राह्मण के जो कुछ है उसके संस्कार भी बड़ा अच्छा था, इसलिए किसी को मतलब के गुने में डाल के उसको पनिशमेंट करने का बद इरादा भी हो सकता है।
क्राइम किया कि नहीं पता नहीं, ब्राह्मण लोग थे, ब्राह्मण लोग के संस्कार अच्छे होते हैं. दिस MLA was one of the members of the panel, and PKD is saying that even though he supports the Prime Minister, otherwise this is just unacceptable. PKD, I just wanted to play that clip again.
Absolutely. This is such kind of a crime. These are places where you need to even the judiciary needs to set an example for the world so that nothing of this sort do not happen. Anybody, any girl or any family should never have to go through such kind of a pain. These are opportunity for our judiciary to set an example that no means no. This is not acceptable in a civilized society. We are a progressive society. We want it to grow, and none of our systems, whether it is any of the Sanatan Dharma thought process, or even the Prime Minister Modi always talk about Beti Bachao, Beti Badao, and his focus, and even 33% reservation, he's the one who has been able to get it. So I think on the one side there is a very huge movement, and to take our the important part of our life, that is girls, to take them into the next level. On the other side, you send such kind of a very bad message that it does happen that even if you rape and even if you are convicted, you will be given a free hand to move around. That is not acceptable.
Okay, let me bring in Zakia.
Come up and argue against me, that saying that Nambiar, how come you take such kind of this thing? But this is the reality. We have so many girls who works in my company. I mean, if it happens to somebody, or if it happens to somebody's house, anybody, so how will it be? So it's
okay,
not
let's talk.
And
thank you for absolutely. I thank you for taking that position, PKD Nambiar. But let me bring in Zakia Soman as someone who's been at the forefront of rights for women. Zakia, what do you think will happen now? You see, there are two ways this could go. Either this is the end, which Rishi Malhotra says it's not, but either this is the end, Bilkis Bano finally gets closure, she gets space to, live her life with a sense of security, or there is petition upon petition and she has to continue fighting. What do you think will happen, and what's your big takeaway from the verdict today, Zakia ji?
So the verdict is really heartening. It reaffirms my faith as a citizen that the highest court of the land will uphold truth and justice, that there is room for one to fight and get justice. Having said that, I think Bilkis herself has said today that although she welcomes the judgment, it is not something of a victory, because she is fully aware of the long, tough road ahead. Because to come this far, the kind of life that she has had to live, she has had to be in hiding, the way she was coerced, the way her family members were threatened, the entire might of the administration was pitted against one woman. So I don't think it will be very easy for her still. But having said that, this judgment does restore my hope in the judiciary and in the rule of law. It was the rarest of rare crime, according to me, Barkha. So she was a pregnant woman. She was gang raped. All her other female relatives were also gang raped, and 14 of her family members were killed. Her infant was crushed and stoned to death. And after that, to file an FIR, she has had to, run from pillar to post for so many years. And it's only when the, intervention of when the Supreme Court and the case was transferred out to Maharashtra, and it was handed over to the CBI years, I think 3 to 4 years after the event took place. So it has been a very, very tough call for Bilkis, and she is a very brave person who has fought it. And I also wanted to add here, since there was mention about the Prime Minister, that same day, the Prime Minister gave a Independence Day speech from the Red Fort, and he talked about celebrating Nari Shakti. And in the afternoon, we get news about these guys, these rapists getting remission. So it has been a huge travesty. It has now this judgment has restored hope for all the women in India who are looking forward to justice in matters of sexual assault, who are also looking forward to justice in matters where the culprits are politically protected, where they are powerful landlords or they belong to the ruling political parties. So it has given hope to all those women. And I think in that sense, this is a landmark judgment. And it kind of walks that kind of a need. It fulfills that kind of a need that a common citizen needs to be reassured. I think they have taken care of that, even as they are bound by the legalities and technicalities of the matter. But the larger question here is moral. The larger question here is about values of the Constitution of India, values of our respective religions. Either way, any which way you look at it, what happened by way of this remission was wrong, because on the part of the convicts there was no guilt. Forget reformation. They were enjoying parole and they were out, they were boasting. There is also a case against one of the 11 convicts where he has assaulted another woman. Who belongs to the so-called quote-unquote majority faith. So it is in the nature of things that these people who were found guilty of such ghastly actions and were given punishments very, very much late in the stage of the whole trial. I think they've got away too leniently and too freely. So I think it's important that right message goes.
Let me get responses. PKD, I saw your hand go up, but please keep it brief because I want to go back on some points of law to the lawyers. Go ahead.
I think bringing this, the Prime Minister spoke on the same day on the podium or something else on that particular day is unwarrantedly just trying to politicize this. There is a decision has been taken by the court. We should be happy. Now, beyond that, the people who have been convicted for 25 years, were they being supported by all these governments in Gujarat or the politicians or in the Prime Minister? No, I think let's not.
The government got support. Consent was taken from the center. It is important, Mr. Nambia. The center gave consent for this action. That's what I'm trying to point out, the gap there. That we are celebrating Nari Shakti and then we are giving consent for such an action.
Ma'am, the problem were the people like that also talk in emotion and they vote for such kind of a causes.
PKD, with respect, this is a case that has made many of us emotional, even dispassionate, clinical, with surgery. Over the years, we've learned some surgical detachment, but it's very difficult to not be emotional about this case. The second point is Rishi Malhotra himself, and he will tell us this, was the first lawyer to confirm on my program that due process required a central approval from the center. Rishi, you remember this. This went all the way up. This went all the way up to the center, which is why Abha Singh is arguing that today there should be an inquiry. Who all signed off on this decision? Were they bureaucrats? At what level was this decision taken? Who took this decision? Rishi, is that a fair ask? That as the Supreme Court says that the Supreme Court was misled, how was the Supreme Court misled? Who is responsible for it? What would you say?
No, I actually don't agree with the Supreme Court finding that there was some fraud played upon Supreme Court or it was misled. But don't forget, I think the impression amongst the panelists is that for all times to come, no government can grant remission. That's not the judgment which is being propounded today. The judgment says very categorically that it would be the Maharashtra state or the Maharashtra government which can consider the grant of remission.
That's right.
First of all, please remove this notion that for all times to come, these convicts will not be granted
No,
remission.
but the Maharashtra remission policy requires 28 years in prison, and
Even
the
that
verdict.
is also wrong.
And,
Even that, no,
okay,
sorry. Even that is also wrong, because I'm quite hopeful, because that was argued and that was ultimately pointed out in the course of arguments in Supreme Court, that even the Maharashtra policy, which relates back to date of conviction, does not talk about 20 or 25 years minimum threshold, because the law is that the policy which
okay.
is
Okay, either way, Rishi, because in my notes it says 28 years. If that is wrong, if I am wrong,
Barkha,
even then, they have to be in jail and apply to Maharashtra.
Yes.
That much we agree on per the Supreme Court. Abha, go ahead. Abha,
Yeah,
go ahead.
very true. We will not go by the 28 years or 14 years, but the very clearly 432 CRP says the appropriate government. An appropriate government in this would have been Maharashtra. And along with that, it said that the judge who had done the trial, his opinion had to be taken,
So
which was bypassed.
therefore, the problem would be,
And
one
let me
judgment
tell you
Supreme
why.
Court says
Because
appropriate government is
Maharashtra
Gujarat.
at that time
Today,
did
one
not have
judgment
a
says the
BJP
appropriate
government.
government is
It was ruled by
Maharashtra.
Shiv
So
Sena,
where does the
which
citizen
was at
go?
Governance.
Okay,
I will say the reason why it did not come to Maharashtra.
That's a
Maybe
complete anarchy now.
political outreach or
Okay.
political overtures. But
Okay.
again, I would say one thing Supreme Court has said again and again, that procedures, technicalities are a handmaid of justice, not its mistress. So
Can I ask you one question? Can I ask you one question?
Technical
Which
grounds
judgment to be
cannot be
followed?
used to defeat justice. End of
If
the day,
anybody
it
can
must
answer
be
me this
justice.
question, I would be
So let us
satisfied.
not say it was a writ or a curative. Ultimately, Bilkis had to get justice, and that is
No.
what Supreme Court has upheld.
Okay,
Can I ask
okay.
one question? Can I
Yes.
ask one question before you conclude? Which judgment to be followed today? The judgment of May 22, which says Gujarat government is the appropriate government, or judgment of today, which says Maharashtra government is the appropriate government? It's a complete anarchy now.
No, okay, let's Sanjoy Ghosh respond. It's a point of law. Let's Sanjoy Ghosh come in on that. I think my understanding is quite simply, Rishi, that this Supreme Court verdict nullifies the previous one.
That can't be done. That's my point. That my first point.
Okay.
That cannot be done in a writ petition.
Okay. Sanjoy, please take that question.
In fact, while you were sparring, I was going through the 251-page judgment which has just come out. And actually, what the Supreme Court says is that that judgment was obtained by fraud. Now,
Yes.
now, while technically he may have a point that if a judgment is obtained by fraud, you go back to that, you file a review, and in fact, the review was filed. But ultimately, in this case, the issue is not about the individual Bilkis. The issue is about whether these people who have committed a crime against society, remember, this crime, other than being committed against Bilkis, the person, this is a crime against society. So whether this kind of remission, this kind of complete anarchy and rule of law, in fact, there is an observation by Justice Nagarathna that this arbitrariness and is antithesis to the rule of law. She quotes Justice H.R. Khanna from ADM Jabalpur's case. So therefore, ultimately, this is a victory for the rule of law. If technicalities have to give way to the rule of law and to complete justice, then that has been done today. Let's not go into this.
But Sanjoy, I want to ask.
One second, and it's crystal clear that the latest judgment always occupies the field, right or wrong. The latest judgment of the Honorable Supreme Court is today's judgment, which clearly says Maharashtra is the appropriate government. So it is the Maharashtra government which has to take a call. And the Maharashtra government will obviously follow the policies of remission of the state of Maharashtra, not of some other state.
Okay, Rishi clearly disagrees, but I was just remembering that this kind of political intervention in remissions also took place, by the way, on the other side of the aisle in Nitish Kumar's case. Anand Mohan, a murder convict, Don, was released to criticism. We must have proper non-political legal rules for how this can happen or not happen. I think that much we can all agree on. Let's take last comments. Rishi, I know you disagree with Sanjoy. PKD, 30 seconds, PKD.
Yeah.
Barkha,
Yeah.
Barkha, political prisoners have been given a lot of remissions in my home state in Kerala. There are hundreds and hundreds of them. Nobody talks about it because one party does it and the other party comes in there, they put their people out and etc. But this is not something related to political prisoners. These are the people rapists, and this is something which shook the country in its spirit, in that thought process. And I am a full believer, though all those people who have a crime against the woman needs to be set an example. It is not about that which
Yes.
state is going to
And I'm sorry I'm cutting you short because time is limited. What worries me is, and I'll come to Rishi, Zakia, what worries me is Rishi Malhotra's comments make me feel that this is not the end as we are thinking. Zakia, quickly.
Yeah, I think it will not be easy because they will appeal, and then they will see the Gujarat government tweaked its remission policy. What prevents any other government from doing that? So that's why I'm saying the moral question here should override the legalities, technicalities. And we should see to it that she is India's daughter. Bilkis is India's daughter. No, she should get justice. Like all daughters of India should get justice. So that should be the guiding principle and not these political tutu meme and technicalities, I think.
Absolutely. Rishi Malhotra, you do not agree with today's verdict. You are going to explore your legal remedies. Are you going to be filing a curative petition, a review? What are you going to be doing?
You see, I need to see the judgment first because, frankly speaking, I have not seen the entire judgment. I heard the judgment today in the morning. But as I said, that morality cannot supersede legality. And if I just complete with one sentence, even Nirbhaya was also the daughter of this country. But they had a legality in that way. The most gruesome accused was a juvenile, and he was let off in 3 years only. So therefore, legality has to prevail over morality. Therefore, I'm saying so. There are two judgments operating in one case in same field. One says Gujarat government is the appropriate government. Other says it's the Maharashtra government. Both judgments say that they have a right to be considered for remission. So remission is there to be there, but it depends on the government to government.
But in the meantime, while you explore your legal options, and I'm not a lawyer, you are better placed to argue that. You remember on this program, you had said if there is an adverse verdict from the Supreme Court, your clients will surrender. I asked you this because our initial reporting suggested that many of these clients had gone missing. We went to their homes and they were not found there. Do we have your undertaking that while you explore your legal options, the Supreme Court order on asking these men to surrender in the next 2 weeks will be respected and followed? Or are you looking for a legal intervention before those 2 weeks are up? Rishi Malhotra.
Of course, we would be looking for a legal intervention, and in case we get some interim order, then why to surrender? But of course, if we don't get any interim order in Supreme Court, we will abide by the Supreme Court's judgment today.
So if you get an interim order, that would be your hope. That would be your hope.
Of course.
So it's okay. That's very bluntly said. Abha, quickly, and then Sanjoy Ghosh, last word.
No,
Rishi
in
Malhotra.
fact, Barkha 432 PC Part 3 very clearly says that now the police can re-arrest these people even without a warrant. So in 2 weeks, I think the police can arrest them right away. They don't need a warrant. And Gujarat government should accept this, apologize to Bilkis. And I'm sure if Visa councils will prevail on the government, they would not go and appeal, technicality or no technicality, because this was such a heinous offense which cannot be condoned by any sensible person on earth.
Yeah, let me give the last word to Sanjoy. The lawyer for the convict says all legal remedies will be sought, including an interim order. So we don't right now know if there's a certainty that these men will actually go back to jail. In any case, our reporting on the ground tells us that they may not be in their homes. But of course, if they don't get a Supreme Court order, Rishi Malhotra says, rather, if they don't get interim relief, Rishi Malhotra assures us that they will submit before law. Last word.
In these dark times, Barkha, we live by each day. So I'm happy today. It's a joyful day. Tomorrow is another day.
All right. That leaves a wide open space for anything to happen. But let's think of Bilkis Bano today. She actually told her lawyer Shobha Gupta on a video conference that she cried. And for the first time in years, she called these tears of relief. As we say thank you to our panel today, we will leave you with Shobha Gupta, Bilkis's lawyer, describing what Bilkis Bano said after today's verdict. Thanks for joining and thanks for watching. Thank you.
Of 2014. Now, my last question to you, you had to take a very tough decision. Bilkis Bano appeared in court herself, right? In the last few hearings, I remember that moment. And this is a lady who has since a very young age just been fighting for justice. Have you had a chance to speak to her or her husband, Yaqub? What are their first sentiments that you would like to convey on their behalf to every Indian?
Immediately after pronouncement, the first thing it is to call her on a video call.
Oh, nice.
Like she made a call and we had a word. I had a word with Yaqub. I had a word with Bilkis. She cried and I got emotional too. But yes, she was very elated, very happy. She said, "I can't believe this was a long battle, tough battle, so many rounds. But I'm very happy that justice prevailed."
And I'm hoping that this time when Bilkis cried, there were tears of relief.
There were tears of relief. The tears of great sigh of relief. And the confirmation that the faith which was, reaffirmed. You always had a faith in judiciary, but that was reaffirmed.
Mojo's story has always made a commitment to its viewers to go to where the story is. And as you can see here, we are at the epicenter of the Israel war on Gaza. We are right at the front line, about 1 mile from the Gaza Strip, as the Israeli military gets ready with its tanks and its gunners to begin its final frontal assault that will take troops into Gaza. As we said, we are not like other organizations. We believe in giving you all sides of the story objectively and as much as possible from the ground. And that's exactly what we're doing here, covering the biggest global story today from the epicenter of the war zone. So please, we need your support. Support us, become a Mojo member, subscribe to us, spread the word, and thank you for your support.